Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. All right, I am pretty excited about the podcast today. I mean, I'm always excited, of course, but I think we're going to have some fun. Andrea Slusarski is here, which is always cool in and of itself. I love talking to her. And today we're going to continue the conversation that we had last time. About a month ago, she was on an episode where we talked about being your authentic self and how your authenticity helps both you and your students. And as kind of an addendum to that, we're going to discuss how that authentic environment helps your students build confidence. Okay, there are a plethora of reasons why this is, and we're going to get into them today. You know, I think part of it is being or allowing kids to be their authentic selves, but also recognizing them for who they are and what they do. And that's an empowering experience for kids. That's something that builds confidence. And I want to ask Andrea about how and why she does that for her kids. Okay, but before we get the conversation going, I need to tell you about our upcoming online conference, the Art Ed Now Summer Conference, on August 2nd. It is the perfect way to get your summer professional development. We will have over 2,000 other art teachers, and you will get to see some of the most current and some of the most innovative ideas in the field of art ed that are happening right now. The highlight is going to be our featured presenter, contemporary artist Jen Stark. And if you are interested, you can learn more at artednow.com. And best part of this, if you want to register, we have a special code for Art Ed Radio listeners. Enter USAVE20 now to get $20 off the conference. That's YOUSAVE 20NOW for $20 off at checkout. So go to artednow.com to get registered, and we will see you on August 2nd. Now, let's bring on Andrea to talk about how that authenticity that we discussed can help develop confidence in your students. All right, Andrea Slusarski is joining me. Slu, how are you tonight?
I'm great, Tim. How are you?
I am doing well. I am excited to talk to you. You're making regular appearances on the podcast now, and I love everything about that. So,
I love whenever I get to dork out a little bit on some art ed with you. So
I know it's a good time. So, and hopefully people continue to enjoy our witty banter. And
I'm here to entertain.
Yeah. Hopefully educate a little bit at least.
And educate, yes.
Yes, but entertaining is our main goal for tonight. Now, we talked last time you were on about, being your authentic self when you're in the classroom. And I know that's super important to you. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about that a little bit more, but in a little bit different way, put a little different spin on it. So I guess we can look at it like this. When you are yourself, when you let your personality show through, when you're authentic, it puts kids at ease and it allows them to be themselves as well. And so the question coming out of that, I guess, is when you are able to establish that environment in your classroom where everybody's comfortable, everybody's at ease, do you feel like does that make kids more confident in themselves?
Oh, yeah, definitely. When you as the teacher are working on your own authentic self and you're showing your passion for art and learning, you're really just being the role model your students will watch as they build their own confidence for creating in the classroom. And one of my favorite expressions to tell the students is to just let your freak flag fly. And yeah, and it's like, could I use this color? I'm like, I don't know, let your freak flag fly. And I value those risks and those moments in the classroom so much. And I make I say out loud how much I value them. It helps my students move very quickly from that timid phase with creating art to acting and thinking and believing themselves as an artist. And when you have that confidence built up, then you'd be amazed to see where they'll go. I just had a student come interview interview me yesterday because she's writing a paper about our arts culture at our high school. And I was like, we have an arts culture?
I was going to say, for kids to pick up on that, that's amazing.
I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, thank you so much. but that's a student being confident in what they're doing to even explore like what kind of culture they belong to.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think, like you said, you want kids to believe in themselves. And one thing that I used to talk to Andrew about all the time is how we need to build up kids' confidence. And I always say, we need to celebrate every success. So if 95% of a kid's drawing sucks, but they shaded that one part so beautifully, like we're going to talk about that one part. We're going to talk about that 5% that's really good because, I always have thought that positivity goes a long way toward developing confidence, and as does focusing on growth, where you can say, hey, remember when that drawing 95% sucked? Hey, you're up from 5% good to like 80% good. Yeah. And that's just in one semester. And you want to show kids how much they grow over a course of a semester or the course of a year. And don't you feel like that just does so much for their confidence as well?
That does so much. And what you pointed out is something that I think I always like reflect on. And as we're building these positive relationships with our students. And because you're doing that, it allows you more naturally to talk about growth. So it kind of is like this thing that just keeps on growing in your classroom. If you're genuine and authentic to yourself and you are making a conscious effort to build a unique relationship with your student, you're going to remember that like that drawing sucked last week. Or, like it's about building those positive interactions so that you have that knowledge in your head of how to show a kid that they grew. So for the past few years now, my SLO data, that those charts you have to send to your district that you're proving that you're doing your job.
Yes.
Yeah, that thing. It's been focused solely on student interactions. And I started actively monitoring how many conversations, positive, constructive, and behavioral during my class times. From there, I was just able to pinpoint students I needed to focus more on and compare their progress in my class with the relationship that I had built up with them. However, more importantly, when you're engaging with those positive interactions, the best thing you can do is connect it to your growth, because then you're not full of bull crap anymore. Because you remember. Yeah. Like I remember that you really like to draw this certain type of character. I learn about your art. So what subject matter are they interested in? How can I take something I learned about them, an interest, a concern, a past experience, and relate it to our positive learning environment? I just love when a student struggles with something and then you catch them succeeding and you remind them, like you said, hey, you overcame a struggle and now look at what you're doing. It's specific, it's personal, and that's exactly why we do what we do, is to teach someone to have confidence in their own art making. And sometimes that means like having 80% of your drawing look really crappy because you just started learning.
Yes.
But it's your art making.
Well, yeah, and I think that's huge, especially when you can, zoom in on those specific things, when you can really focus on those specific things. So let me ask you that, like, are there particulars that you focus on, when you're trying to build confidence in your kids? Like, is there something you look for with everybody, or is it more of just an overarching attitude, or just a big approach that you take when you are trying to build confidence?
I think it's an overall attitude. I don't feel like there's an important thing I primarily focus on, except for the fact that there are so many opportunities to have a positive experience that will build someone's confidence in a day that you just got to look for them. And that focus can mean being honest with my students about my own experiences. Like, I have a headache today, so I'm going to be kind of quiet. And that's me. You didn't do anything wrong. Or having the mindset to constantly be looking for those times that I can be drawing next to a student or just chatting with them. So much about our confidence building and classroom management is directly influenced by our own authenticity. So when you build your strengths and model for your students, you're going to be guiding them in that confidence building through your actions. So it's kind of just like this overall like attitude towards your teaching that can kind of work really well in a lot of areas.
Yeah, and I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts swirling around in my head, so I'm hoping this makes sense. But
okay.
I think a big part of that is, when you're building confidence through your actions, I think part of that is you need to allow kids to be confident in themselves. And when you're teaching high school, kids want so badly to be adults. They want to be treated as adults. And sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes you don't. But the worst thing that you can do is be condescending toward kids. That could be a whole nother podcast episode. But, I think it's really important to allow kids to feel validated in your classroom. I think that you need to listen to their concerns. You need to listen to their opinions. You need to get to know them like you're talking about. And most importantly, I think you need to not pick fights. You need to not get into arguments. And you especially need to not talk down to kids. And I think you and I are kind of on the same wavelength with this, but have you found that taking that attitude, of not talking down to kids, not being condescending, doesn't that help them build their confidence? Doesn't that help them to feel validated?
To feel validated, I think, man, you threw me for a loop here. These are there's just so much, but there's just so much that goes into your relationship that you're building. And when, like you said, you don't want to pick fights or get into arguments or be condescending because they're just kids. You're the adult. I still don't feel 100% adult sometimes. I do know that it's tough. We expect our students to think before they speak and to always make the right decisions. And we have these expectations of them. And then you become an adult and those expectations are just now unchecked. And when you're condescending or when you are, picking a fight over something, you're not being a great adult role model. And that loses your authenticity as someone they're looking up to. I don't know. We have a bunch to learn from our students and they're looking at us how to be adults. And so by not picking fights and working through the difficult parts of being a human, like conflict, we're still teaching. Because there are going to be kids that grind your gears. But everyone needs to feel good. No matter what they're doing. Kids don't wake up in the morning and think man, I can't wait to get to painting class to tick off Miss Slew. That's not what's going on. It's really about kind of getting to know your students so that you're better able to respond in a positive way to them.
I think the community thing is huge. And I like what you said about everybody needs to feel good about what they're doing, because, I know that one thing that really helps with both validation and with confidence is helping kids to be recognized for their work, for what they're doing in art class. They need to be part of a larger community, both in the art room and in your school at large, maybe even community at large. And those communities, from small to large, need to validate what they do. And when kids are feeling validated, that builds their confidence so much. Has that been your experience as well?
Mm-hmm. My students are proud to be artists. And once you build that community in your classroom, it's only going to grow. It's only going to spread. Because now our student body values the art community. And this doesn't happen by staying in your classroom and focusing only on your students. I am constantly sharing photos and art room successes with my school, my colleagues, my community. Twitter is free and it's easy and it doesn't take that long and kids love it. email your person who does your website and put up some art. And you build sort of that swag going on, right? Like almost like high schools with like super successful sporting teams. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of like how you want artists to feel too. And so when those kids they're celebrated for their work and others see how amazing their work is, they have that inspiration to see what they can keep doing. So building your culture, it just ties together all those experiences and those relationships that you're building in your classroom. And it helps just kind of expand to more of a student audience. I have kids now that like come into my classroom and are like, oh my gosh, you're Miss Lou. Like my cousin told me like that you're who I had to sign up for. And like, I'm like, cool. Thanks, cousin. Now I don't really have to work so hard at the beginning of the school year to build a
Yes.
relationship.
Yes. And I think that's huge. And I think, building that art room culture and building
Mm-hmm.
that community helps in so many ways. Like, and I'll get to that in a second, like how it helps us as teachers too. But, for kids, like they love, like you said, to be part of the art community. They are proud to be artists. And
Yeah.
I think that is a huge confidence builder for kids who maybe aren't good at anything else or they aren't recognized for anything else, but if their work is showing up on Instagram and their work is showing up on Twitter and, kids are like, oh, hey, are you the one who did this painting? Or, hey, I saw that sculpture that you did, and they're getting recognized for that. That just lifts them up so high. Like they love that. And then part two, like I said,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I had one more.
Go ahead.
I have one more. We got those ideas because you talked about how high schoolers they want to feel adult. They want to have responsibility. They don't know what that really looks like yet, but I don't know. It's kind of a weird time in your life being 17. We all were there. And in my classroom, I make it very student focused. So students are kind of running the show in terms of like getting their own materials, taking care. Like sometimes I'm like, this place is a mess, you guys, we got to clean up. It is their studio. And I tell them that all the time. I'm like, this is your guys' space. I'm just like the kooky lady that's here to help. And then, but like they're adult and they take it like, I love like I have like kids who would like call out a kid and be like, that paintbrush is not washed right. And it's like awesome.
Yes. Well, and that's the point I was getting to, because when you build that community, when you build that culture, it makes your life as a teacher so much easier. And you've pointed a couple things out, like kids start to take responsibility for all of those little things. They're proud to be in the art room. They're proud of what they've built and they don't want people messing it up. So they're going to do a lot of that dirty work for you. And then, second thing is classroom management is so much easier when you have a positive reputation coming in. Like you said, kids will come in and be like, oh, my friends all took this class, told me how to sign up for it. Oh, hey, my sister had you 4 years ago and she said, I'm going to love this. And when kids are coming in with that positive attitude, it's a game changer.
And it's just be nice. Like be nice to kids in the hallway. I have kids that I've never met before and they're like, oh, I can't wait to have painting. And I'm like, who are you again? They're like, oh, you talked to me last year when I was having a bad day. And I was like, that's just a nice thing to do.
But they don't get enough of that. They don't get enough of that. So I guess, if we can wrap it up just with one last thing there, like when you are nice, when you are building a culture, when you're trying to build confidence, like how does behavior follow that? Like how does behavior change when building confidence and validating kids is a part of what you do?
Well, I have a funny story because I think the important thing to remember is like we're in high school because it's kind of a safe place to make a mistake. And I remind myself that a lot, like when I'm getting frustrated. It's like we're in high school, like these are why we're here to learn. And I once got so disappointed in the way a class of mine treated a substitute that he totally went like full on parent mode. And I am by no means close to having my own children, but I pulled that like I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed card.
Yes, that's classic.
And I went and I went and had like a good look in the mirror. Was like, who are you? But then I had them all silently write apology letters as our classroom warm up, and I didn't expect it to actually work as well as it did. Because after that reality check, they were so reflective on how our relationships were built. And we discussed things like trust and being honest and how that applies to our lives, because we're learning, and it's not just art in the art classroom. That's the cool thing about being an art teacher is kids take so many lessons out of our classrooms that we don't directly teach, but every person loves their art. Like every person remembers their art teacher for that reason. Even in the most frustrating and the times, if we can find that energy, twisting it into a learning moment, that's what we want to provide for our students. So they sat there and they wrote all these letters, and they were just so, oh God, they were just so sweet. And it was like, I'm not mad anymore. But something a little beyond the typical drawing skills, we like focusing on those life skills too. But following that warm up, we quickly switched right back into our fun classroom because we all make mistakes. And I'm very conscious of pointing out the behaviors, not the students, when I am addressing behaviors in the classroom. Then I hope that because of all of our efforts to work through behavior, it just validates them even more. Because I tell kids, I'm not going to just write you a referral and kick you out. I'm here because you're my student. And if you have that mentality, even on like those times when there are behavioral problems or there are frustrating days, they're still learning opportunities and still ways that you can validate a student. Imagine that kid that gets kicked out of every class and you're the first person to not kick them out, but instead like, hey, let's talk about this. I will always go like at the end of any time I talk about behavior and what that means for students in validation, I'm very reflective to make sure I don't need to apologize or change my own behaviors because that's the only way to truly cooperate with our students. So when you're building that classroom where mistakes are okay, they're learning opportunities, we're here because we care about each other and we're going to be nice to one another because we want to have fun, kids will really respect that. And that just all builds their confidence and just a fun hour out of the day. I tell a lot of my kids, I just want to make someone smile every hour. And then I'm like, golden.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think that's really well said. So I think we can go ahead and wrap it up there. I can't finish it any better than that. So thank you so much for joining me. And we'll talk to you soon.
I can't wait, Tim. Have a good night.
Just a couple points that I wanted to make. First, Andrea talked about how building your culture is important, and it all ties together all of the experiences and the relationships that you're building in your classroom. And I feel like on this podcast, we've been preaching that forever, whether it's me or Andrew, Abby, Andrea today, and so many other guests, just how important culture is for everything that happens in your art room. Okay, whether it's classroom management or confidence or motivation or so many other things, your art room culture is vital. Okay, and that's what sets everyone up for success. Okay, and finally, Andrea talked about those positive experiences that help develop kids' confidence. And I want you to keep in mind that you can create an art room that fosters, positive experiences, that develops creativity and develops kids' confidence. And the biggest way you can do that is just to model that positivity and that confidence yourself, and your kids will follow. And trust me, nothing but great things can come from that. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. 2 weeks away from the Art Ed Now conference, I have been working really hard on putting everything together, and it's gonna hurt my feelings if you're not there, let's just be honest. So go sign up for the conference, use the YouSave20Now discount code that I mentioned earlier, and make sure you show up so we can hang out on August 2nd with another couple thousand of our art teacher friends. As always, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.